Hi everybody, this is Heath Kelsey from the Integration Application Network, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about free GIS software. And as part of the mapping module, we thought we'd make this an optional module in case you wanted to create maps and start working a little bit in GIS if you weren't familiar with it. And we'll walk through how to download it, how to open it, how to manipulate data and things like that. There are a couple of other things that you might be interested in if you're making maps to the web, like Mapbox or CartoDB and GRASS GIS and a couple of other options, but this one is a really good one. And also, if you're part of the Maryland system, you probably have access to ESRI's ArcGIS too, which is still the industry standard. But this is a free version and still pretty powerful. So it's good to play around with. It seems to be very easy to use and fairly flexible, and so far I haven't had any issues. It runs well on a Mac, which is a big thing that ESRI software doesn't do at this point. So anyway, go to the www.qgis.org/en/site, and that takes you here. And then you can go to the download page, click on download. I'm downloading from Mac, so I go to the King Chaos download page. And also I need to say thanks to Ben Wally for putting together the first go at how to download this stuff and what we need. And what we do need are these components. You need to download these first, the GDAL complete, matplot library Python module rather, the QGIS module, and then this other QGIS one here for support. So download all of those and then open up QGIS. That's the emblem there, and you'll get something that looks like this. So this is the map analysis page, the data analysis page, and this is just the your file structure on your computer. We'll set you up with some example data, and I've created a new folder in the class for the map module and data, and then there's the Florida shoreline as examples, and then mangrove habitat and salt marsh habitat. So what you want to do is take this .shap file and double click it, and that'll put it into your map window, and you'll see it, the outline of Florida miraculously pop up over there. Do the same thing with mangrove habitat. That'll put that on top, and then scroll down and do the same thing with salt marshes. And this is just an example. You can find lots of other free data sets that you want to play with or mess around with. And what we'll just do is we'll create an example map, show you how to manipulate the colors and the way the map is displayed, and then export it in a vector format so that you can play with it in Illustrator if you choose to create your own map. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that things are in the right order, and this is actually in the right order. You don't want the shoreline file on top of the marshes, and I'll show you what happens if you do that. It kind of covers up some of the other some of the mangrove and salt marsh habitat. So I want to make this something fairly neutral because I want that to be the kind of background. I don't want that to be really standing out a lot. So I just double click on that, and that'll take you to another window, and it'll give you some options on how this layer is going to be seen. The first thing I want to do is, you see over here all these black lines. Anywhere you've got real complexity and really small changes in the outline, that line is going to be all you see. And we're going to be focusing right here on the northern part of the Indian River Lagoon, and all I see are black lines. So I'm going to take that and go to no pen. That just takes that line out. The rest of the lines that you already see, or you still see, are the seagrass and mangrove habitat lines, which we'll deal with in a minute. I also want to have this be a relatively neutral color. I want that to be in the background, not something that's super standing out. I don't want it to stand out a lot. I want it to be in the background. and so we can look at something a little more toward the gray, something like that, maybe even a lighter gray, lighten it up a little bit so it's really part of the background. You just hit OK, and then apply. If that works for you, that's pretty good. So you can see also that now very clearly that the black lines here are the outlines of salt marsh, and the mangrove, the outlines for the Florida shoreline outline are not there. So we'll just hit OK. That one looks like a pretty good neutral background color. And then I want to do something similar to mangrove habitat. And I think of mangrove as something dark green. Again, because the outlines are so complex, I'll take that outline off, and then I'll make it into a a dark green, like a little something like that. That shows your current color. We'll use that, and then apply, and that's gotten part of it. And then we'll do the salt marsh. So double click on that. This again, do that, and then I don't know. I think of the salt marsh as I want it to contrast with a deep green, and I think maybe a yellowish, a bright yellowish would be pretty good for salt marsh. I've already put the no outline on there. Hit apply. See how that works, and yeah, that looks pretty good. So this is now we're seeing mangrove and salt marsh habitat against the outline of the state of Florida. And I'm going to zoom in to the Florida coast right near Cape Canaveral and look at Mosquito Lagoon. And that's interesting because it's kind of at the northernmost range of mangrove habitat. And the other thing that I've noticed when, at least especially in the Mac, it's very sensitive to the mouse and the mouse pad, so you end up zooming in on things that you didn't really intend to, which just happened there. So it's something that's going to happen. So this is, it just happened again a little bit, but so this is Mosquito Lagoon. I'm going to go out one more. This is Mosquito Lagoon, and this is Cape Canaveral here. And so this is the northern part of the Indian River Lagoon, of which this is part here. But we see salt marsh and mangrove habitat. And this is interesting because this is the northernmost part, the northernmost extent of mangrove habitat. And the folks up there have been documenting a northward progression of mangrove and a reduction in salt marsh. So the mangrove is kind of marching northward and taking over a little bit of the salt marsh habitat. So that's kind of interesting. Again, I will zoom in appropriately, at least I'll try to, for this part of Indian River Lagoon. And again, you can see the extent of mangrove and seagrass. And just to show you what happens, I'll move up the Florida shoreline. And if you put it on top, you can see that it covers up a lot of the mangrove and salt marsh. So that's not what you want. So you kind of have to play around sometimes with which layer you put on top. And I don't think it matters that much for mangrove and salt marsh. It doesn't change things that much. So yeah, but it does matter for the outline. So okay, I've got as an example, I've got this this data set. I'm pretty happy with the colors I've chosen. Pretty happy with the order that things are in, and I've zoomed into the right layer. I want to create a map now that I can export. So I'm going to go up to Project and go to New Print Composer, and then I'll give it a title, Florida example, and then I've got a blank screen here. So what you want to do is go over here, and that's create or add a new map. and just highlight where you want your map to be. And lo and behold, bang, that thing is put in where I wanted it to be. You can change a lot of the settings, like the size of the paper. I want it to be letter. It defaults to A4, which is like a European size, but I'll put it to A4, which is, or a letter size. And then you can change things like you know, the export resolutions and things like that. So let's add a couple of things to this map. We want to add a legend, which it's HTML frame, attribute table. We want a scale bar, and we want a legend. So we're going to put a legend in. Let's put it in over here. And that's, you know, what actually is in the map. Let's add also a scale bar. So we can add that here. And again, you can change the way this is depicted. So I want maybe 500 meters and present it in kilometers. And I want, you know, I make that smaller. So I want 1 to the left and maybe 2 to the right. Just make it a smaller scale bar to make it something reasonable. And then I want to add a north arrow or compass rose or something to show you where north is. And you go up here to add image, which is this one here, and then say I want that up here. Again, go to item properties, go down to search directories, and it'll give you a whole bunch of things that you could put in there. And I want to put in a north arrow. And people are very particular about what north arrow they use. I don't know. I never find one that I'm really all that happy with, but I'll just use, you know, this as an example, and make it a little smaller. And maybe I'll bring it down here to be, you know, part of the legend stuff. And again, there's my zoom issue. And there we go. So there's a quick and dirty map. We can also add an inset map for Florida. I can give it a try here. So we can do this and lock this, and then we'll go back to our map, and we'll change the. We'll take these two off and go to zoom to layer, which will zoom to the extent of that of the Florida shoreline. And lo and behold, we've done that. And then I can go back to the map window and add another inset map. So I'm going to add a map going here. And there I've got the outline of Florida, and then I can add a little shape. Say okay. Move over to it. Say okay. This is this part of Florida that I'm looking at, and then go to item properties, change the style, and again change the fill to something no brush, and it's just got an outline now. So then that becomes a little box around that, and then I can go, and I've got my completed map. So what I can do now is to export this, and what you want to do is go to Composer, Export as SVG, and just find an output. I've created this one. I'm going to write over it, trial1.svg, which will create a map as a vector layer. So I'm just going to save that, just replace it, and going to export the map layers as SVG groups. That will, and again, you might have to mess around with this a little bit to get to do it exactly right, but it should help when you're an illustrator trying to edit certain things but not others. And crop to content, so we won't have all this extra stuff anywhere. And hit save, and there we go. And so then just go to your SVG and open it up in Illustrator, and you can edit it from there. Anyway, have fun with it, play around with it. There's lots of places where you can get free spatial data, and yeah, just play around with it. If you want to create your own maps for this module, this is an easy way to do it, and yeah, a good way to get started with GIS. So anyway, thanks very much, and yeah, let me know if you have any questions during class.